I'm Doug Coyle. I'm here with Marcelo Blanco, General Manager of Old Glory, DC.
How you doing, Doug?
I'm doing fine. And you?
Great. Look at this. A gorgeous day to be here and play rugby.
It is a gorgeous day. Tell us about your general manager responsibilities, particularly bringing in some of the international players.
Yeah, well, basically my role is simple. I just need to make sure that I provide all the infrastructure for the players to perform their best at the pitch. I'm convinced that there's no success for a club if you don't have a balance between on the pitch and off the pitch performance. So basically I'm responsible for everything beyond these lines that we see today.
You bringing in a diversity of international players. The tough thing for teams these days, you have 10 international spots, non-Canadians, U.S., and you have a surplus of players. Some you brought in from Argentina.
That is correct.
A number from New Zealand or other Pacific Islands.
Yes.
Many of the players are here without their families.
That is a challenge for them, yes.
Talk us about what you do as a club to meet these challenges.
Well, let me start with the first part of your question, saying that it is a challenge, to provide, a good atmosphere for diversity of players. But I'm convinced that diversity brings the best of the club. That's why we decided to bring, players from South America. The Pumas, they have done extremely well lately at the world level. So we decided to incorporate, 6 players from Argentina. We have one from Uruguay, and then with a good balance from New Zealand as well. But we have players also from Samoa. We have players from Ireland. But the main purpose for us as a club is to develop local players. We just need to make sure that domestic qualified players are at the best performance. So we believe that bringing players from Argentina and New Zealand will help them develop. There's a lot of breadth of young players. We have 3 Eagles, Jack Scarrow, Corey Dennis, Jameson. So these players from Argentina and New Zealand will help them get better. The second part of your question, which is great, is it is a challenge. Me, myself, I'm without my family. But the club, we do a lot of functions over the weekends. We make sure that we incorporate, the spouses, their partners. For example, last week we took all of them to Annapolis, and we had a function. The spouses had one thing doing, the boys were doing another thing. They all combined. So we're trying to be a family.
Didn't Corey go to Scotland to train?
That is correct. Not only Corey. Corey, I believe was John Rizzo and Owen Sheehy.
Okay.
As you know, Scotland is part of our family. Well, it's one of the investors. We are the only professional team in the league with the direct participation of a major rugby union such as Scotland. And we are sending players, and the idea is to bring that more and more going forward. Bring players for here, develop them there, and eventually, why not? You may see a Corey Daniels playing for Glasgow, Edinburgh soon,
Do you see any young Scotland players coming here in the future?
We would like that to happen, but I believe that the limited numbers of Scottish players, they need to be with them, That is a challenge for Scotland to continue to produce, players at the caliber of international level. So I think that so far they're being utilized at Glasgow and Edinburgh.
With your contacts and the new head coach, Jot Sims, do you see some of the players, younger players, going either to Argentina or New Zealand in the off-season?
Mostly to New Zealand, yes, because it's a professional. Unfortunately, Argentina is amateur club rugby, so the players will not have incentive to get paid there.
Okay.
But Josh, for example, is challenging the boys, telling them that he may need them for the MPC. So, he may bring, 8 to 10 players with him for the second part of the year. So that is a great, incentive for the boys.
This club, more than most, has a strong military following. You have 3 players.
Yes.
2 from West Point.
That is correct. Army.
One that was at the Naval Academy and is currently active duty.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about them?
First, the rivalry. Those guys are at each other all the time. For example, the other day I wore a Navy sweatshirt and I got in trouble with Army. So I got them to get me something from me. But you know what? They bring something else to the club. The respect, the commitment, the emotion, the internal emotion. I mean, it's a privilege for me. Me, myself, I went to Navy Academy High School in Argentina. And I know how important for these guys is how proud they are to be here. Gardin, for example, he's at the office, a Navy officer. He wakes up every day at 4 o'clock. He works for the Navy from 5 to 10. Then he comes and trains for us, and then he goes back to the Navy. That is sacrifice to me. And they're so happy to be here. For them, it's a privilege. Just watch them play, and you will show their commitment.
And the two West Point grads, this is the first time that they've been released from active duty commitment to play professionally. Could you elaborate that a little bit more on that?
Well, they were drafted.
Yeah.
They were drafted. Colin Gross and Koi Nolligan, two phenomenal individuals. I mean, Army should be proud of having them, and that's what I like about the U.S. About the American system. Even if you're an Army officer, Navy officer, you can continue with your passion. The rugby is a passion for these guys. So then I want to play rugby and then go back to the Army. And that is great about this country.
Will Colin and Koi be going into active duty in the off season?
I believe they had to go back to work, like many of our players. We have guys that work for defense contractors, real estate companies, financial analysts. That is a beauty.
One of the things we expect this season is to see increased crowds. Is there anything going on promotionally to encourage greater crowds?
Yes, that is my biggest challenge. I mean, that is my ultimate challenge, to make sure that if you look at Segra here, look, the capacity is 6,000 to 8,000 people. Today we may have 2,000, 2,500. Gorgeous day. We want to see filled stadiums. MLR wants to see filled stadiums. We are improving the game day experience. For example, free parking, beer vending, food trucks. I mean, you've been here already. You see the bus, what's going on. So clearly we're trying to improve that. On the marketing side, yes, we are doing everything in our capacity, reaching out to media, reaching out to advertising campaigns.
One of the things I can really compliment Old Glory on is having lineups available. You had a packed house at St. James.
That is, yeah.
Over 1,200 fans, a standing room only crowd. Your team now has depth that you're going to be very competitive for the entire 80 minutes.
Yeah.
And that should translate into increased wins, which should put more people in the stands. With that.
At the end of the day, I'm convinced that results will bring other results. If we don't have a good performance on the pitch, we're not going to have a crowd here. So my job, like I told you before, we started that way the conversation. My job was to make sure that we had the best roster there is, and I believe that with the ownership, the support of the owners, we have done a tremendous job. I'm convinced that we have one of the strongest rosters there is.
I think there are going to be some exciting times for Old Glory this year.
Well, thank you very much. I hope it is.
Thank you for sharing.
My pleasure.